Well, President Bola Tinubu dedicated a large chunk of his Democracy Day speech to the National Assembly on Thursday to addressing lingering questions over a one-party state structure allegedly being foisted on Nigeria by him and the All Progressives Congress Party. He also seized the moment to confer national honors on a long list of citizens who are considered as having made telling contributions to the fight for genuine democracy in Nigeria. We're now being joined here on Newsday by Ambassador Godknows Igali, who's a chairman Pan-Niger Delta Forum, to discuss the takeaways from the President's Democracy Day Address and ways through which democracy or democratic ethos can be entrenched in Nigeria. Good afternoon, Ambassador. Many thanks for joining us here on Newsday.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Now, from your perspective, what were the key takeaways from the President's address that actually advance democratic practice?
Well, the speech was generally presidential by my own assessment, and the President touched on many issues that Nigerians wanted answers to. There are others which he did not mention at all, which are of concern to some of us. But the key takeaway is the fact that June 12 has come to stay as a major milestone, a major landmark in our democratic trajectory. Rightly, Mr. President has a bragging right to have the privilege to celebrate June 12 in the sense that he was one of the dramatis personae during the period. He was in the eye of the storm and played a major role. And by providence, is today the president. So it was a good happen chance that he's able to lead the country in celebrating June 12. And number two, the institutionalization of the day in the National Assembly for him to also give, as it were, a State of the Union address, which is what happened yesterday. And I think these are major nuggets in building our democracy. So I think it was generally okay. We, as a bureaucrat, I found some issues a little bit troublesome. If speeches are written for presidents and there are names of living people put among the dead, or names of people who have had honors included again, I think those who work around him have to go back and do some work. When we were younger and we were doing some of these things, we were very made to know that the president's speech is the epitome of the celebration of excellence in a country, and you don't make those kinds of silly mistakes by mentioning the prominent person who is alive as a dead person. Besides those little things, I think generally it was okay. And the syntax, the language was quite appropriate.
All right. How do you reconcile celebrating democracy while many Nigerians feel increasingly excluded from governance?
Well, I think that's a major issue of concern. While we celebrate, we must also know that I would prefer to use the word remembering that day, because in terms of celebration, many Nigerians feel that the space for them to live well has been totally attenuated. It has been they've been put in the margins. They live on the fringes of existence, and it is an issue of concern to all of us who have one role to play or the other in the country as leaders, both at the center and at the subnational levels. We must pay attention to such things that matter to the ordinary man, like food. I don't know if those in government at present don't have the kind of harassment that some of us have. You become technically like a POS machine. You get hundreds of text messages, people asking for 3,000 naira, 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira. People are barely existing. So I think for the people in authority, they are at different levels. And when I say this, I mention different levels because we have the federal government, we have the states, we have the local governments. We should recognize that things that matter to the ordinary man, food, number one. Then things like healthcare, out-of-pocket expenses for healthcare are so much. So lot of people die unneedfully because they can't afford the basic medication for malaria, for typhoid, for dysentery, and so on. Then there are issues like primary school education, basic education. The other day, someone was telling me that in a place like, in some states, even including some parts of the FCT, there were strikes by teachers and children don't go to school, or you go to school and schools are dilapidated. These are things that we should focus on. Every child should have the right and the opportunity to go to school. You shouldn't pay lip service to it. These are things that matter to people. And the question of the environment for some of us who are from the Niger Delta, the issue of the environment that is polluted by oil, which nothing has been done. We still talk about Ogoni cleanup, and it is more of tokenism. So there are issues like that are existential issues. Security, more and more, is becoming a concern. Thank God for our troops and all what they are doing, and we pray for them daily. But at the same time, the reality is that Nigerians are dying in very large numbers in many areas. There's a lot of insecurity to life. So these are areas that we have to improve upon. And yes, but we can remember the date and celebrate the lives of those who are to pay the supreme price for bringing us where we are.
Also, Ambassador, appreciate what you mentioned about the issues that need to be addressed, like food security and existential matters as well. But what concrete steps, from your perspective, do you think this administration has taken to strengthen democratic institutions beyond rhetoric?
Well, for the mere fact that the three arms of government are functioning, I think that is okay. But however, some of us feel very troubled. Troubled, I say, because there is a paradox and of celebration of Democracy Day and what we have, for example, in Rivers State, where you have a near dictatorship and military administration taking place in that state, and it was totally left out in the speech. If I were in the team that were to write the president's speech, I would have somehow said something about it, even if it means that there's work in progress, because I do know, as somebody who is involved in some of the peace efforts, that there's dialogue, there's discussion going on about that. They totally were silent on it. It's an irony because there is a state of emergency. There is a military rule. In fact, I don't know why the Constitution Section 305 does not say that you should be appointing former military people when there is a state of emergency. But you have a former military man who, by all intents and purposes, a well-decorated man, but we consider him a reserve. I'm an ambassador, and I'm on reserve, and every other ambassador who has served this country as a career ambassador is on reserve. We get called all the time to come and do some work. So is it military people. So it's a reserve person, and he moves about with military people. Listen, in this country, it is only the president of this country that has a military ADC, that has a military, can have a military chief of staff if he wants. Even the vice president has a governor, the senate president, a policeman, senate president has a policeman. But the administrator in Rivers State, being a military man, keeps military people all around him. So there's a kind of siege. So if he goes to a public event and there are military people all over him with guns, how do you want the people to feel? How will the people of Rivers State feel that their budget of 1.48 trillion is brought to National Assembly and it is being debated by people from all parts of the country who don't even know how they live in Rivers State? Is that the intention of the Constitution? Is that a best democratic practice? How do you feel when even the State Independent Electoral Commission membership is being brought to National Assembly and other constitutional bodies for National Assembly to approve for the president, for them to pass on to the state? Who are these people in the National Assembly? Do they know these people? Do they know, for example, if I call a place like Abese, which is in the ocean in Rivers State, or I call, for example, maybe somewhere in the Kwere local government, deep down, do they know the place? So these people, how do the Rivers State people feel? So I think that the complete non-mention of this situation, because we know the president is doing some work, there's some talk going on, but 3 months is enough time to be able to put his feet down and say, no, we must go back to democracy in Rivers State. This is a very important state, and we all feel concerned that if this state continues like that, it is not the best for us to be celebrating and believing that all is well in the country. But yes, there was a situation of misunderstanding between people, and the president intervened, and we put that behind us, and everybody is cooperating with the military administrator quietly, silently, unhappily, because there's a foreign element in the democracy. And I think it behoves on the president to be able to put his feet down and tell all those concerned, I give you this timeline, you must come up with a workable solution to that problem in Rivers State. And also the Senate president, who, by the way, is a Port Harcourt boy. He went to Federal Government College, Port Harcourt, and they grew up in Port Harcourt. And they should all be concerned. And when this state of emergency was declared, we were told that a national committee of top people will be appointed to make peace. And I think where 3 months is enough time, 6 months, but if you are making a budget for 1 year, you want to appoint electoral commission. The electoral commission will now conduct local government elections. If the governor comes back, is he going to redo it? Will he dissolve it? The interim man there, who is supposed to just be what in diplomacy we call chargé d'affaires, he's just in charge of affairs for a time. A placeholder is appointing permanent secretaries, is appointing all kinds of people, and a temporary man is appointing permanent people, permanent secretaries. These things, it's a big dent, it's a blight on democracy, and everybody is watching us and silently laughing. My mind's eye tells me that it's as if the state of emergency, those who are running it, see a sense of permanence, as if we are not going nowhere, let's do everything to remain here. And this is very troubling, and I think it should have been addressed. It was not there. But still, we pray and hope that the president can do something. And also to the political actors in Rivers State, there's a time for everything. The irony, the very interesting fact is that both the governor and the minister of the FCT are people of the same faith, from the same denomination, this religious group. And they should be, the Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 8 says there's a time to war and a time for peace. There's a time to hate and a time to love. There's a time for peace, and this is a time for peace. Can't they see? So let all of them and the supporters come together, agree together, and we'll move forward. So let's have peace return to Rivers State. So very soon, when we go to maybe October 1st, and we're celebrating our National Day, we cannot beat our chest and say, oh, we put this Rivers State situation long behind us.
All right, okay. You've touched on this, but how effective has the government been in protecting electoral integrity and the independence of INEC?
No, I don't think that INEC has a duty to conduct elections. And if INEC continues to decide to conduct elections in a way that is questionable, Nigerians should hold those who have conducted these elections to account. The government is made up of politicians, and politicians will always try to have an advantage. It needs candor, and it needs, like what Justice Oviewicki once said, that when he was chairman of what is today transmitted to INEC, he said if he sees 5 million naira, he will collapse, he will faint. INEC officials have to be able to carry out their duties with a lot of candor, knowing that we'll all look back all the time and say this election was conducted by these people. So politicians would want to have their way, but INEC should have the say on how elections are conducted.
Okay, what's your assessment of the current separation of, or state of separation of powers and checks and balances?
Well, you know, in 1748, Montesquieu came up with the book Spirit of the Law, where he said there should be separate arms of government. We have a very opaque situation. Opaque in the sense that that separation of powers many times is brought under question, in the sense that people who should be able to be firm are not as firm as they should be. I think it is, again, it comes back to the operators of the Constitution. The Constitution has its own issues, and I'm happy that there are a lot of conversations by different groups in the country on how we can go back and look at the Constitution of 1999. But at the same time, it also depends on the operators of the Constitution. The operators of the Constitution should be able to stand firm. Let me tell you, we had a situation where President Obasanjo wanted a third term. And it was Nigerians who stood firm in the National Assembly and said, Mr. President, sorry, sir, no vex, sir, we can't do this. And I was then one of the staffers posted to the presidential villa, and I know how President Obasanjo worked hard to convince them. And we prepared briefs and justifications, but the National Assembly said, no, we cannot do it, Mr. President. So I think these are things that we need to, those who operate the system, have to stand firm. The same thing with the judiciary. We're all watching. We're all watching that, you know, if certain judgments continue coming out in a manner that makes it even more clear for a first-year law student to be able to justify history, we all stand before history. We are not what positions we hold, whether in government or out of government, in civil society or in community base, will come and pass. But then one day, those who come out to write the history will write the history. And I think we need to be conscious of what will people say when I leave this scene. And I think, so it is a matter more for the operators of the system. And the spirit of the law, as said by Montesquieu about 400 years ago, is clear on how the separation should be. People should not just be in one cloak. And if I can quote Justice Nikitobi of blessed memory, once said, he said, look, for those of them who are in the judiciary, he said, your arm from the political class should be wide, very, very wide, so that you are above board. A word is enough, and I think one shouldn't impugn any kind of maybe lack of trust on individual. But it's not a general thing. There are many people in different arms of government who are doing well. People stand up to. But yesterday, after the president spoke, Senator Saraki Dixon, who comes from my state, my former governor, stood up and made his own point as a senator from the opposition. And but there were other senators from his own political party that were kowtowing to everything that was said. So sometimes there can be dignified and properly constructed way of engaging government that is not in your own side. The same thing for the states. States have their own, the law gives them sufficient power, and everything we hear today, federal government, the states should be able to show leadership. The governors of the states should show leadership. And even in the states level, there should be separation of power. Now you go to some states and there's almost nothing like an assembly. The assembly people are almost like staff of the government, of the governor. And I think that shouldn't be the situation. It is the operators that have to show more strength, more candor, and more integrity.
I want to say thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we're actually out of time, but we'll certainly continue this political discussion as time actually goes on.